I thought they had my back. I thought they believed in our shared vision. I treated them like family. I gave them everything, and they still stabbed me in the back. Listen to the desperate, echoing cries of the modern man when his business collapses, when his partner leaves, when his closest friends abandon him during a crisis. We live in a society intoxicated by a delusion. From the moment you are born, you are fed a romanticized diet of fairy tale morality. You are taught that if you are just a good person, if you sacrifice your own energy for others, if you offer blind loyalty to those around you, they will magically return that loyalty when you need it most. You see the pattern everywhere once you start looking for it. The CO founder who insisted there was no need for a written agreement because we trust each other, right up until the company became valuable enough to fight over. The mentor who poured years into a protege, expecting gratitude as a kind of automatic interest payment, only to watch that protege become a competitor the moment he had absorbed everything worth taking. The employee who turned down a higher offer out of loyalty to a boss who, months later, laid him off the instant the numbers required it, with what looked like genuine personal regret and zero hesitation in actually doing it. None of these people were uniquely cruel. They were simply behaving exactly the way Han Feizi predicted any rational actor would behave the moment incentives changed underneath them, while the people on the other end of those decisions had built their entire sense of security on a word, loyalty, that was never actually load-bearing in the first place. You are taught to build your entire life, your business, your future, on the fragile expectation that other people will always do the right thing. And then reality hits. The betrayal happens, the contract is broken, the friend disappears, and when it happens, you are completely destroyed, not just financially or socially, but psychologically. You shatter because you believe the world is exceptionally cruel, but I want to offer you a much colder, much more liberating truth. The world is not cruel. You are just dangerously, pathetically naive. You got destroyed because you expected human beings to operate on a currency they do not actually use. You expected loyalty, when the only currency that has ever governed human behavior is self-interest. In the 3rd century BC, during one of the most brutal, blood-soaked periods in ancient Chinese history known as the Warring States period, there emerged a philosopher whose ideas were so terrifyingly realistic that modern society still struggles to look at them directly. His name was Han Feizi. His own life ended up proving his philosophy in the cruelest possible way. He was born a prince of the small, weak state of Han, watching it get bullied and humiliated for years by its far larger neighbor, the rising state of Qin. He wrote his ideas in part as a desperate attempt to save his own dying kingdom from collapse, and when his writings eventually reached the king of Qin, the very man who would soon unify China and become its first emperor, that king was reportedly so impressed that he went to war specifically to acquire Han Feizi for his own court. Han Feizi was handed exactly the kind of brutal political environment his philosophy had predicted all along. He arrived at the Qin court not as an honored guest, but as a rival to be neutralized, and a jealous fellow minister, by most accounts, a former friend who recognized a superior mind, maneuvered him into prison and then into a forced suicide before the king could fully act on his admiration. The man who built an entire philosophy on the premise that nobody can be trusted to act against their own interest was destroyed by exactly the mechanism he had spent his life describing. There is no better proof of a theory than the theory consuming its own author. Han Feizi was the ultimate architect of a philosophy known as legalism. While other philosophers like Confucius were busy preaching about the beauty of virtue, moral righteousness, and brotherly love, Han Feizi looked at them with utter contempt. He saw their teachings as dangerous poetry that gets leaders killed. Han Feizi understood that trying to govern a state, run an empire, or even just manage a small group of people by appealing to their goodness is a guaranteed blueprint for catastrophic failure. Human morality is incredibly fickle. It changes with the wind, with the mood, with the economic climate. To explain the raw mechanics of human nature, Han Feizi wrote a brilliant, deeply disturbing analogy that completely destroys the illusion of human morality. He wrote that the carriage maker wants people to be immensely wealthy, so they can afford his luxury carriages, while the coffin maker wants people to die prematurely, so they will buy his coffins. Stop and process the sheer gravity of that observation. Is the carriage maker a saint because he wishes you wealth and prosperity? No. Is the coffin maker an evil, demonic villain because he is secretly waiting for a plague to wipe out your family? No. Neither of them is driven by morality. Neither of them is driven by hatred. They are both entirely driven by cold, calculated self-interest. They simply want to survive, and their survival depends on different outcomes for you. When your business partner betrays you, when your employee steals your client, when your closest ally suddenly becomes your fiercest competitor, it is almost never personal. They did not wake up with a burning desire to destroy your life. They simply looked at the chessboard and realized their personal survival, their ambition, their comfort was no longer aligned with yours. The incentive shifted. The Coffin Maker simply needed to make a sale. When you weep and cry about loyalty, you are essentially begging a Coffin Maker to wish you a long, healthy life. You are projecting a fantasy onto a reality that operates on cold mechanics. Relying on loyalty makes you profoundly weak because it means you have outsourced your security to the unpredictable emotions of other people. You have handed the keys to your empire to someone else, simply hoping they won't drive it off a cliff. Hope, as this channel has already established, is not a strategy. It is a narcotic for the weak. Han Feizi taught that a true master, a true architect of power, never begs for loyalty. He engineers it. How do you engineer loyalty? By mastering the cold, unapologetic architecture of human incentives. Han Feizi described the tools of this architecture using a phrase that translates roughly as the two handles, reward and punishment, the only two levers a ruler actually needs to pull to control behavior at scale. Everything else in his framework is decoration. He believed a ruler obsessed with being personally loved was building on sand, because love can be withdrawn the instant it becomes inconvenient, while a system of consistent, predictable incentive cannot be withdrawn without the withdrawer suffering a real cost themselves. He wrote that a wise ruler does not rely on his people doing good out of the goodness of their hearts. Instead, he orchestrates a system where it is mathematically and logically difficult for them to do bad. He aligns their survival entirely with his own. In one of his most famous essays, sometimes translated as The Five Vermin, Han Feizi went further and identified the categories of people most likely to drain a kingdom from the inside. Not invading armies, not foreign spies, but the eloquent scholars who talk endlessly about virtue while producing nothing of value, the wandering swordsmen who substitute personal bravado for actual loyalty to any structure, and the merchants and favor traders who accumulate private advantage while contributing nothing to the collective strength of the state. His point was never that talk, charisma, or commerce are inherently evil. His point was that a ruler who cannot tell the difference between someone who is useful to the system and someone who is simply skilled at appearing valuable will eventually find his kingdom hollowed out by people he personally liked. The modern equivalent is sitting in plenty of teams right now. The charismatic hire everyone loves, who talks brilliantly in meetings and produces almost nothing measurable, quietly draining resources from the people actually doing the work, protected the entire time by how likable he is. Han Feizi would tell you, without flinching, that likability and value are two completely separate currencies, and that confusing them is how empires rot from the inside while everyone is still smiling. If you want absolute loyalty from your team, your business partners, your network, you must stop trying to make them love you. Love is fragile. Love is emotional. Love can turn into resentment overnight. Instead, you must make yourself absolutely indispensable. You must build a structure where their success, their wealth, their reputation are fundamentally tied to your victory. If they win when you win, they will fight for you with the ferocity of a starving wolf, not because they care about your dreams, but because they are fiercely protecting their own. This is why the modern concept of calling your business or your network a family is one of the most toxic, manipulative lies ever invented. A family operates on unconditional love. The market operates on leverage, capability, execution. When you call your team a family, you are secretly hoping to extract free labor and blind devotion. And when they eventually leave you for a better opportunity, you act like a victim of a great betrayal. You are not a victim. You simply misunderstood the rules of the game. You expected a biological bond in a transactional arena. There is a piece of modern economics that arrived at almost the exact same conclusion as a 3rd century BC Chinese minister, without ever having read a word of him. Game theorists studying cooperation discovered something called the principal-agent problem, the simple structural fact that whenever one person, the agent, is acting on behalf of another, the principal, their interests will inevitably diverge at some point, and the agent will act in their own interest, unless the incentive structure makes that costly. This is not cynicism. It is just an honest description of how systems with more than one self-interested party in them actually behave. Every modern business that has ever built equity compensation, profit sharing, or commission structures was simply rediscovering, in spreadsheet form, what Han Feizi tried to teach a Chinese king with the story of a coffin maker. You do not need your employees to love the company. You need their personal upside wired directly into the company's success, so tightly that betraying it costs them more than it could ever gain them. This same blindness shows up far outside the boardroom, in places that feel too personal to analyze this coldly, which is exactly why almost nobody analyzes them this way until it is too late. The friendship that survives a decade of shared struggle, where both people were equally broke, equally unproven, equally hungry for the same kind of validation, can quietly buckle the moment one friend's success outpaces the other's by an order of magnitude neither of them anticipated. Nobody plotted the betrayal in advance. The incentives simply stopped pointing in the same direction. One person now has access to rooms, opportunities, and circles the other does not, and the cost of maintaining the old closeness has risen in ways that have nothing to do with how much either of them still likes the other. You do not need to assume malice to explain the slow fade that follows. You only need to apply the same lens you would apply to a business partnership, and the mystery dissolves into something far less personal and far more structural than it felt from the inside. When you finally embrace the brutal realism of Han Feizi, a massive heavy weight falls off your shoulders. You stop being chronically disappointed by human nature. You stop being angry at the snake for biting you, and you simply stop walking barefoot in the tall grass. You forgive people for their selfishness because you realize it is not a flaw in their character. It is their primary operating system. This shift in mindset does not make you an evil, cynical villain. It makes you a grounded, untouchable architect of your own destiny. Because when you stop begging for loyalty, you start building leverage. Leverage is the only true currency of power in the modern world. Leverage means you have the skills, the capital, the network, the knowledge that other people desperately need to survive. When you hold the keys to the gates, you don't have to ask if people are loyal. Their loyalty is a guaranteed byproduct of your leverage. Picture two founders building a company with the exact same early team. The first founder leans entirely on culture and vibes. He hires people he genuinely likes, calls the company a family from week one, tells everyone that equity conversations can wait because right now they're building something special together. For the first year, this works beautifully. Morale is high, the team feels like a tight, loyal unit. Everyone believes they're early employees of something destined to be enormous. He posts about his team constantly, calls them his ride or die, and genuinely believes the bond he feels is mutual and permanent. In year two, a competitor with deeper pockets starts poaching his best engineer with a salary he cannot match. The engineer, who has spent a year being told he's family, agonizes over the decision for exactly 4 days and ultimately leaves anyway, because a feeling of belonging has never once paid rent. The founder feels personally betrayed, tells the story to other founders as a cautionary tale about ungrateful employees, and never once examines that he built an entire retention strategy on an emotion he had no actual control over. By year three, he has lost 2 more people the same way, each departure framed by him as a personal wound rather than a structural failure he keeps refusing to diagnose correctly. The second founder treats the same hiring decisions like Han Feizi treats a kingdom. She likes her early team too, and she is not cold to them, but she does not pretend the relationship is a family. From week one, she ties real equity, real upside, and real recognition directly to outcomes that benefit both sides simultaneously. She has the uncomfortable conversations early. What happens if someone leaves? What happens if the company is acquired? What happens if performance slips? Precisely because she knows that clarity now is cheaper than heartbreak later. In year two, when the same competitor comes calling with a tempting offer for her best engineer, the math simply does not favor leaving. The unvested equity, the responsibility he now owns, the reputation he is building inside a company where his success is visibly tied to the company's success. All of it adds up to a structural reason to stay that has nothing to do with how he feels about her on any given Tuesday. He stays, not because he loves her more than the first engineer loved his founder. He stays because leaving costs him more than staying does. By year four, the first founder has rebuilt his team twice, each time telling a fresh story about loyalty and betrayal. The second founder has the same core team she started with, not because she got luckier with people, but because she never gambled her company's stability on hoping people would feel a certain way about her indefinitely. Tomorrow, look at your life with the cold, calculating eyes of a legalist philosopher. Where are you currently relying on hope? Which of your alliances are built entirely on the fragile assumption that the other person is just a good guy? Identify those vulnerabilities. Strip away the emotional poetry. Look at the raw mechanics of the relationship. What are their incentives? What do they stand to gain? What do they stand to lose? If your empire can be destroyed by one person changing their mind, you do not have an empire. You have a house of cards waiting for a strong breeze. This is the seventh piece of the same weapon this channel has been assembling, civilization by civilization. Musashi removed feeling from effort. Lao Tzu removed force from outcome. Tsunetomo removed hope from fear. Sun Tzu removed information from exposure. Krishna removed avoidance from duty. Bodhidharma removed escape from attention. Han Feizi removed sentiment from structure. Each one identifies a place where the untrained mind quietly leans on something soft and unreliable, a feeling, a hope, a comfort, an assumption about other people's hearts, and replaces it with something that does not bend depending on the weather. None of these men were telling you to stop feeling things. They were telling you to stop building anything load-bearing out of the feeling itself. It is time to stop playing the victim of fake friends and disloyal partners. Accept the brutal truth of human nature and use it to forge a fortress that cannot be breached. The world respects leverage, not tears. Understand too that this is not a license to treat people as disposable tools, manipulating them coldly while feeling nothing for them at all. Han Feizi's framework is not an argument against warmth between people who actually have it. It is an argument against building your structural survival on the assumption that warmth will always be there when you need it most. You are allowed to like the people you work with, to genuinely enjoy their company, to wish them well. You are simply no longer allowed to mistake that enjoyment for a contract. Keep the warmth where it belongs, in how you treat people day to day. Keep the architecture somewhere it cannot be shaken by a single person's change of heart. There is a final irony worth sitting with before you walk away from this. The same king who once went to war specifically to obtain Han Feizi, who reportedly read his essays and wished aloud that he could meet the man who wrote them, is the same king who later let him die in a prison cell on the word of a jealous rival, too slow or too indifferent to intervene before it was too late. Even the philosopher who saw the entire machine most clearly could not fully protect himself from being caught inside its gears. That is not a flaw in his theory. It is the theory's final, most brutal proof. Understanding the mechanics of self-interest does not make you immune to other people acting on theirs. It simply means you stop being surprised by it. Stop wasting your grief on a betrayal that was never personal, and start building the kind of structural position where, the next time the incentives shift, they shift in a direction that still requires you. Stop expecting the world to be kind. Make yourself undeniable. The machine is moving. Secure your position. Get to work.